now.
And so I may again call the meeting to order. And we have to approve the agenda. So may I have a vote as to somebody move that we approve the agenda, please?
So Ray just moved the agenda and I'm seconding it.
All in favor? Everybody? Thank you. All right. Any pecuniary interest, et cetera, to declare in any way?
Not for me.
All right. And the minutes of the February 21st meeting, could we have somebody move that we approve those minutes, please?
I'm not sure I was
I
there.
read them. Yeah, you were there.
All right.
So Ray motioned it, seconded it again.
Again, in favor? All right. So now we are here with our guests, and we are here with, and they would like to make a presentation about the Village Green, and who will be speaking first? All right, Stuart, you're up.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for gathering together like this. I know it's the first meeting since the COVID started, so we very much appreciate your input. We've been very busy over the last couple of months, and this whole project started August in 2018, and through the next succeeding period, as you know, we went through a number of community consultations and design reviews with the community. So we've had lots of input along the way. Today, what you'll see is the site has been cleared. The fountain's been removed. We've taken the artwork, Ralph's artwork, and carefully stored it in a warehouse. And we're going to be rehabilitating it and refurbishing it and bringing it back and putting it onto a new podium that'll be in a different location. So we have also been fortunate enough that we started fundraising last year, and we happen to have the funds available to complete the project at this point in time, so that's very good. We've got a contractor, Natural Blends, in place, and we're going to council on the 22nd to get council's approval, which hopefully will be supported unanimously, Barry. So we would like to have your support, and we would like to have your input and answer your questions. So maybe what we'd like to do is have the questions at the end, if that's okay. We've put together a little bit of a presentation because it has been a while since we've met, and I think it's important that you understand the changes that have happened and how they've evolved. So I'd like Ines perhaps to kick this off, and Vin will follow up, and I'll come back with some final comments. Ines?
So I think, Vin, if you would put the presentation up, we've got about a 10 to 15 minute presentation with drawings.
Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
No. Okay.
Let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
Following up on what Stuart has mentioned, it's been a long road to get where we are today with construction starting, but I wanted to remind us all that it was more than a year ago in February 2019 that the firm Small came and helped us work out what was important to the village. And there were 4 items which I wanted to remind us all about that we will see as the design moves forward into construction today. So the word connector was very important, and that an example of that would be the east-west pathways that people like to take through what was the horticultural park, that they really wanted it to be a placemaker and highlight what is valued by the village, which are items like the fountain and the climbing crabapple tree. So those unique pieces were things that were preserved throughout the design process. That number 3, it being an attractor, that there are reasons to go there, that there are lots of new activities, as well as the preservation of contemplative spaces. And fourthly, that it was a landmark. This was really important for the BEIA in terms of bringing in tourists, bringing in shoppers. So as we go through the design elements, think about connector, placemaker, attractor, and landmark. And I think that the landscape architects have been very successful working through the plans and keeping these as the key goals. Let's go to the next one. This is the drawing that you saw in September of last year, and it meets the 4 goals and then some. We had lots of comments about more green space, a better connection to food land, make sure that the market is clearly demarcated, and so forth. So this was September 2019, and now we're 7 months later. Vin is going to show you what happens as the firm worked through the detail design. They have worked with 30 community volunteers who have been on this project nonstop, as well as 24 different consultants, some volunteer firms local to the village, and some Toronto and Collingwood firms. So this is what you last saw, and Vin is going to take you through what has been happening for 7 months, because it's going to be the same goals, but a modified plan as they got detailed input. So Vin?
Okay. So as Stuart and Ines had mentioned, the last several months have been going through iterations of the design and trying to achieve the goals that were set out by the SMALLS plan. So you can see that we still kept and still aligned with the same design objectives, but spatially some things have been shifted around just to accommodate certain programming. The stage has been moved to the north, and I think this is a good move for us. It allows, you know, we're imagining most of the circulation is coming from Mill Street, so the stage actually acts as the landmark and as a marker within this project site. By doing that, we also shifted the water feature to the south, and we positioned Ralph's water fountain closer to Mill Street for a few reasons. One of them is to create visibility of the water feature instead of sticking it back here. Also, it creates a sort of like a white noise to the activated zone. So it begins to mute some of the activities that are happening here and create more of a contemplative space sort of east of the zone. You'll see that we've also expanded the water play area. So sort of in synergy with the water fountain, we've included a children's water play where there will be a few jets at varying heights. This will also animate that the Mill Street connection. Just sort of north of it, we've included some boulders, some playful boulders along the west side of the lawn, just to create that playful zone within this area, coupled by having a lot of seating, a lot of different seating within this area for supervision. You can also see that along Mill Street, we greened up that corridor quite a bit. You can see that there's lush garden-like planting along this whole strip of Mill Street, and only pathways that sort of intersect it that allow circulation. There are a lot of the big part of the design was referencing the historical and cultural reference to the station on the green, and we've maintained that. We've added banding that is sort of like railway lines, and that connection is still there and still maintained, and it's very strong. South of that, we've also maintained the cenotaph walk, which for us, it's more of a secondary pathway. It takes you through an alley of crabapple trees, and it's going to be lit a different way as well. It's going to give more of an intimate feel. To the north of the site and sort of the area abutting against the station on the green, we've kept that garden like atmosphere. Plugged within that landscape, we've added benches for contemplation. The planting along here, we're still working with the Horticultural Society to develop a very strong planting plan. But as you can see, it's gonna more or less be very garden-like. Another move that we've made is adding these flexible tables and chairs. We've actually created a generous open space along the Bank Cafe to sort of interact with the program there. And this allows sort of, you can imagine having a coffee or having a lunch within this area. And because it is movable, it is flexible. So you can move these tables and chairs anywhere within this plaza itself and create your own setting. We've maintained the existing trees, notably the large maple tree along Mill Street, and also the crabapple trees right by the stage and right south of the main line. And we've included a large plinth that's flexible. You can imagine sitting on here, you can imagine standing on here. It's supposed to be a playful element that adds to the square here. In addition, it also acts as a seating plinth to sort of gaze towards the stage. So within the stage itself, we've added generous seating along the stage when it's day-to-day activities. But when there is a band playing, you can imagine this whole area would be filled with people standing, sitting. There's a lot of opportunities for different types of arrangements. For accessibility reasons, we've also included a pathway to get to the top of the stage. So that allows users that needs assistance to sort of still have the stage be universally accessed. Some of the other elements that are within the landscape plan are these architectural sheds. These are still being developed by the architect, and they are to store furniture, provide a shed for the Horticultural Society, but also house some of the water feature equipment, which is located right here. Next to it, we also created a zone for, let's say, teenagers. It's a ping pong table that will surely keep this whole zone activated. Next to the station on the green, we included a terrace, what we call the terrace. And it's set in a more contemplative space with the gardens in the background. We recognize that there are certain programs within the station on the green, such as weddings, that this is the perfect, spatially, this is a perfect location for that. This can accommodate, I believe, roughly 60 to 80 people standing within the zone, and that can be extended further north with an additional 40 or 50 people. Let's see, what else? And then in terms of accessible parking, as you notice, there's accessible parking to the north of the building. And I think Stuart is gonna talk to this a little bit more, but I think we've shifted the parking a little over to the east of the park. But more or less, it's located within this area. Okay. And then these are just zoom-ins of those specific locations, so you get a better idea and sort of a legibility of this, the site plan. So this is a enlargement along the the west side of the park, and you can see that there's a lot of planting, sort of making that area super lush. And then to the east, it's more garden-like. And then also we've dedicated 2 large lawns within this area, and they're more flexible. They're meant to be used for day-to-day, but also for events. So you can imagine if there are market stalls that are located along here, you can have market stalls placed in the grass, and then sort of like a prominent walkway that leads you into this market stall. In addition, they are lawns, so you can imagine having picnics here, lying on the grass, throwing a frisbee. So they're meant to be a softer version of a hard plaza within the village green. And then some things that are still in the works are we're still finalizing the canopy, the architectural sheds, as mentioned. Ines is working really hard with some of the volunteers to get the inscription along the main line, which is located along here. So the idea is to have inscription along the banding. Also, we are working closely with the Horticultural Society to develop a finalized landscape planting plan, and I think that should be coming to us very soon. In terms of lighting and signage, that's also something we're working with the consultant. Lighting within the overall plan is going to come from a practical point of view. We're going to have light poles along the main line to keep safety and to keep it well lit. And safety is obviously the reason that we're having this, but also to build sort of a lighting ambience within the site. As mentioned, these alleys are supposed to give an intimate feel, and we are going to light it a different way. We're going to sort of cast lighting onto the pathway, but also lighting the trees. So this will give more of an intimate feel to the site. Okay. And then, as Ines had mentioned, we have tons of volunteer, and Ines, you can probably speak to this a little bit better, but.
Over the last 7 months, we've had more and more people come forward and volunteer their time. You'll recognize some names. This is a partial list, but we've got people like James Brewer, who lives in the village and is an exhibit designer. He works in Iceland and Texas, but he's designed some beautiful panels for the hoarding. And you can see there's Steve Lucas from Dunedin, who's come through, and he is a specialist in stage sound and lighting. You can see Barb Mann, and she's working together with inscriptions for the pathway that are of historical interest to Creemore. And then teams of people, whether it's the build team or the fundraising team, but we've got consistently about 30 to 35 volunteers who have spent 7 months on working together with PFS to guide them on what's important from the perspective of the village and their expertise. And then the next group of people that PFS has been working with are consultants, suppliers, and contractors. And the people with an asterisk beside them are local firms. You all know Scott McKay, who did the survey, Abby Scott from Collingwood, Shane Durnford, who's done most of the signage in Creemore, has come up with a wonderful palette of wayfinding and almost landmark-like signs that is coming together. Tobias did the arborist report as a volunteer, and now he's doing the inspections. And you can just go through the site and see the names that have been involved. So again, there's another more than 24 people from these firms. So I think that has meant that the design that PFS has shown you is quite rich in detail and really does represent what's important to the village. So, and of course, they're putting up the hoarding this week. We've got 4 artists who are going to be preparing panels, 1 a month, and those will be used as fundraising elements at the end of the project. But the idea with the hoarding, as you'll see, once it starts getting, the design gets implemented, it's about attracting people to the village. And I think that's probably even more important right now, to say that there are wonderful, great things happening. And these renderings that you've seen are going to be on the hoarding, so that any tourist that comes through town will say, I want to come back in the fall when this is finished and shop here and dine here, because it's going to look fabulous. So that's our presentation. And then Stuart is going to talk a little bit about where we're at in terms of next steps.
Okay, I won't take long here. Really, the next step is for us to, we've submitted drawings to council. There are a couple of outstanding items that we're working on with Terry and the management team. But we've largely got the design completed. We really need to get under construction immediately. As many, or as all of you know, the site has been cleared. Believe it or not, it took 13 trucks to remove the fountain, the old fountain. There was so much concrete. I think we went halfway to China to do that. So the goal then is on the 22nd, hopefully to receive unanimous approval. Excuse me, no COVID. Hopefully to receive unanimous approval at council. But we're very excited to move forward, and we've been working very closely with Terry Vachon, the general manager of Parks and Rec, on this, and we're keen to go. We're ready to go under construction right away. Our anticipated completion date is sometime in October of this year. Planting is difficult because it depends what the status is on the trees that we're looking for. We're looking for specific types of trees, whether they're readily available this year or early spring. It's always debatable, and we can't make commitments until we get approvals. So it's been, the planting will either be done late fall, very early spring. So, excuse me, allergies. Other than that, I think we could just open it up for questions, Linda.
Excuse me, Vin, why don't we go to the plan?
Yeah, good idea.
Well, is it my turn? All right. From comments I had from the board, and Brian, I don't see you here, but I'm hoping you're still here. You're not in I don't see Brian Bell.
He's
but
here.
Okay, good.
Click the arrow at the bottom or the top.
Oh, there he is. Thank you. Because some of it was, all right, the things we wanted to talk about. Ongoing funding, the memorial plaques and benches. What is the plan for that? I mean, I know the benches have been moved. Some of them are around town, what have you. But those benches do have, like a person who donated a bench and everything was asking me the other day, what's going to happen to that bench? It's been moved. What will happen? A lot of it has to do with maintenance of the entire park area, the fountain. So I'm taking, I was having difficulty with this personally. So the Children of the Dance is still part of a fountain. There is still a fountain there, and then there's a little water area beside it. Because at one point I wasn't sure about that, but you're telling me that's okay. And then the splash pad, the programming and maintenance. I know that I'm assuming you're planning on hiring a person or a person and maybe a person and a half. I'm not sure what you're doing, but the important thing is with that is that you have to, when you're planning programming and anything for the Village Green area, it can't create a problem for what's going on in the station. In other words, they have to be, you have to look into it. We can't have a big concert going on if there's also a wedding. You know what I mean? We don't want any conflict there. And then the other thing, and I was talking about this, is the accessibility parking. The reason that it has become a bit of an issue is because I was at a lifelong learning presentation in the wintertime, and the parking lot does not get plowed until all of the roads are done. It's kind of last on the hit parade. But people are trying to get from their cars into the station, and this one particular day, it was dreadful. There was ice, there was everything. So where the accessibility parking over there, to walk from what I'm looking at now and to walk to the station at the front, and that is the accessible entry, it could be a real problem unless you have plans for some sort of maintenance to maintain and keep these whole areas, like right to the front door in the winter, and maybe even the walk off of Caroline Street in, so that if, you know, whichever one is going to be easier, to get people who need accessible parking into that front part of the station. Because I actually, on this particular day that I'm talking about, I actually had to call the township, tell them how bad it was, and they did send something over to do some plowing and clear it up. It was that bad. So those are all of the things that we wanted to talk about, and I guess really funding. How long will the funding for all of this go on?
Okay, well, maybe what I could do, I've made notes of your questions here, Linda. If it's okay, I'm going to deal with them not quite in order. Number one, Ines, perhaps you could talk a little bit about the benches and the memorial pieces and what the plans are for those.
I'm not quite sure where all the benches are going. Some of them will remain on site, but I think they have to be refurbished and repainted, and some of them are a little bit structurally loose. So I think a few are going in front of the south side of the station, and then the plan is we've talked to the township about accessibility throughout the whole village, and there has been input from Creedon Valley saying that not so much their residents, but when visitors come to take the residents out to what is going to be the village green, that they have a problem with getting to the site without having regular rest stops. So the idea is to take a look at the site itself, the east side, and see if there aren't places for placing those memorial benches, so that when you head, whether it's from the library or Creedon Valley, you know that you don't have to walk a full 10 minutes without being able to sit down. So all of them are, I think they're stored in somebody's barn right now, and they're going to be refurbished and placed around the site. And the anything that has a memorial or a donation plaque, those have all been saved and they will be relocated. Ralph's Fountain, Mr. Herzig's Harmony sculpture, and then there's some smaller items as well. Those will all the naming will remain. And I think the oak tree as well was a donation in front of the station there.
So will those plaques be remaining on site, or are we going to?
Yes, they've been removed and stored in a safe place, and they'll all be coming back.
Okay, does that answer your question, Linda?
Well, when they come back, will they be coming back onto the benches, or will they be coming back in some other way?
If there was a plaque on a bench, it will stay on that bench.
Okay, and will the plaques all be cleaned off and so that you can actually read what's on them?
Yeah,
okay.
That's part of the exercise.
And then the plaque that was on the pergola?
I believe Gail Cocker has that right now. She's leading up the planting design for horticulture.
Mm-hmm.
And so she has that in hand.
And something will happen. Well, we'll have to see what happens to that one then too.
We're also going to have a wall of recognition, in which case the names of those people who made donations and memorial donations will be provided with recognition on that wall as well, just so that if the bench is over on the other side or over here or over there elsewhere, that there'll be recognition on the property of the donation. So I think it's going to be pretty well covered, Linda, but
okay.
Yeah, we're not quite at that level of detail, but that's the plan at this point in time. And any other questions on that?
No, not on that. Not from me.
Anybody else?
Barry?
I have a question. It's Barry here. I just want to confirm that the statue is part of a water fountain. There's still a water gusher in the center of the fountain. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And it's being taken, this has been taken by a company called MST. And They're located in Toronto, which they'll put into their warehouse. They're going to refurbish it, bring it back, put it on site, and there'll be a water fountain in the middle of it. And then there'll be about 9 other splash pad, what do you call them? Sprays coming up out of the
Water jets.
water jets, that's right.
Yeah.
Ray has some questions.
Regarding construction, there's surely a stage area where the new handicap parking will be. Is there any plans for temporary accessible parking during construction?
Yes, there is. It's down across from that on the other side of the Village of the Green by the east wall of the village. Or on the east wall of the city, sorry. I'm getting a little-
Could you repeat that? Ray had a hard time hearing it. Stuart, if I may suggest, don't move your head around when you're talking because talk great and then we can hear you.
Okay, I'll stay still. It will be on the northeast corner of the station on the green. Does that make sense?
Okay, also about the bike racks that are going in, they seem to be, if I'm correct, metric to imperial measurements, approximately 3 feet high. These are not very kid friendly. The kids won't be able to be put. They're to be made for more street racing type bikes.
Okay, and that's,
Bike racks for kids, or is it just one style that's going in?
Ben, I think can answer that. I think someone's got their phone on too because we're getting a lot of static. I don't know if anybody can they turn their phones off if they're near the computer. And do you want a bike rack?
So yeah, so the bike rack is the universally accessible. It is about, I believe it's about 3 feet high, but you can anchor because it's on 2 poles, you can a kid can easily anchor or lock up their bike to sort of one of the poles.
Do you ever see kids park bikes? Not. Some of these bikes will go right under it. I see that they're the style that they put out, like fairs and stuff like that. I don't see any kids using these bike racks the way they are, to tell you the truth.
really?
They just seem to be a certain style that's not really, that's really friendly for kids. I mean, they're going to end up throwing their bikes on the ground. That's fine with me, but
Ray, if I could
just saying.
if I could jump in, I think this is an area that we have not really finalized the details on yet, but I think why don't we take it away just to put some consideration into having something for kids. I agree with you. I think they're to get to, and I think having something there for the kids is a very good idea. We want it. We want it. So, sorry, I gotta turn that off. We do want to have it kid friendly, and I think it's a very good point. So, as we work through the details on this, why don't we take another look at that?
And just one final question. All the electrical, sorry, the lighting and the staging will all be independent from the station on the green?
The township is responsible for utility costs on the property, including water, power, and sewer and anything else. So those costs will be a township expense. How that gets split to the station on the green and to the township, I don't know. Check with Terry on that.
Because that to me interests me, because the last thing we need is additional expense right now. We will, I mean, for the board to raise additional money for things that we're not planning on paying for, that could be a problem for us.
Okay.
Right there.
That's something that we're going to have, or is going to have to be brought up. I was not aware that the township would be, or NISBA would be responsible for energy costs at the park, but we'll have to put into discussion. Probably what we'd have to do is put a separate meter in to deal with the utilities that are used for for the park versus the utilities that use the station on the green.
Yeah, I think that's a good solution. Yeah.
And just out of curiosity on that, the fountain, because it has been moved and everything, so whenever the fountain requires cleaning, that will be the responsibility of the people you have already hired or
That's
will
correct.
hire
That's
to manage.
correct.
Thank you. All right, what's your next thing that you wanted to talk about, Stuart?
Okay, sorry, I apologize. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the ongoing funding and the staffing that we have on site, which I think deals with a couple of your issues. Number one, we have an endowment that we've put together to ongoing costs of operation. We have a budget for it. We're obviously going to be refining that budget over the next little while, but we have to facilitate that. We have a 20-year contract with the township.
Sorry, Stuart, I can't hear you. You're cutting in and out. Your voice is loud and then soft, and it sounds like echoey.
Okay. Do you want that closer? Is that better?
That's much
Yeah,
better.
Stuart, if you stay close to the screen, close to the microphone, and then keep your
Okay,
head still.
Apologies, then. My apologies. Should I start again on that?
Yes.
Okay. We have been fortunate enough to raise enough money and to have an endowment in place to be able to fund the required maintenance and the staffing. We're still doing some ongoing fundraising, but that is, we've taken the cost of the project's gone up to about, just for the construction cost, about 1.6 million. We've probably got upwards of 1.8 million into it now. If you look at the total project, we spent about 200,000 or 300,000 on it. So we will be, we'll be moving forward with hiring the staff as soon as the project is near completed. We have a project coordinator, Linda, that will work together with the Station on the Green and Barry and Terry on the events and activities. We need to have a coordination for this person together with the Station on the Green's representative, whether it's Sarah Hirschberg or whoever, to make sure that we don't have conflicts of interest and that we minimize any noise issues that might arise through that conflict. So that person will be responsible for that. And we will also have a maintenance person. There'll be a part-time maintenance person who will come in and be responsible for removing, doing some of the snow removal. The township does some of the work, but we're going to do the cleanup work. So to have someone out there a little earlier to clean out parking stalls and that kind of thing isn't really a problem. But it's a good point to bring up because we do need to consider it. So the maintenance person together with the program coordinator, the two people who will be working on the green.
When you're talking about funding for these, how many years will this be able to be funded?
20 years.
20 years.
That's right.
Thank you. Any questions on that from anybody else on the board?
It's Jeremy here.
Yes, Jeremy.
Yes, this is a question not related to the budget, but it's one to the project, which we kind of jumped into the budget here. But can we just take a sec away from that and go back to where we were? One of the questions was on the recognition board that you had proposed, or in the planning. Does that also include recognition of the indigenous lands upon which this was built? Do you know if that? I know that was a key element that had been brought up right in the early stages when we were doing those group community planning.
Ines, perhaps you could respond to that.
Vin mentioned that if you look, Vin, if you could move your cursor to the main line walkway, please. Along there, you see black granite bands. And the concept has been to do a walk in time of how this site developed. And one of the first pavers will be a nod to these are the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe and so forth. So that's going to be one of the key pavers as you enter the site from the street.
Very good. Well, I think that's great. Thank you. And just another quick one. Have you contemplated having video security monitoring?
Ines, I don't really believe we have as yet, but Ines, maybe you've got further thoughts on that?
That's something that Jeremy has come up with the lighting designers, and they're looking at this from a safety point of view in terms of traveling across the site, primarily in the east-west directions. Part of the PFS design ethos has been that you can walk through the site and there's no place to hide. So any place that might be could potentially be a dark corner will be really well lit. I think you have a security camera on the station right now. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And as a matter of fact, that's why I brought it up, because the importance of it particularly was to the fountain. If there's any mischief, it was able to pick out who might have caused that. So, and I mean, that just goes from various forms, throwing dish soap into the fountain, those kind of things, up to, actually destruction. So it's just a question and a comment for you to consider, because it is quite an important aspect, and particularly if you've got a lot of the equipment out. But yeah, just a thought.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
I think that's a good suggestion, Jeremy, because I think also we've got the freestanding tables. And if we'll be able to put those away and or chain them up depending on what time of year it is. But I think it would also be wise to have an eye on that too, particularly across the air.
Yeah.
So that we get to see the fountain, and we get to see the open area where there's. Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea, Jeremy. We have not built that into this as yet.
Good.
We'll certainly take a look at that for sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good. You're welcome. And sorry, I cut into your budget talk there. Sorry. So your budget just popped up a tad with the video.
Yes. Okay. So
All right, and where else would you like to, what else were you going to talk about, Stuart, up those areas that we talked about?
Well, I think we've talked about the ongoing funding. We've talked about the benches. We talked about the maintenance funding. We've talked about the sculpture. We talked about the programming and the need for coordination with the social green, which I think is absolutely important. The last point is the accessibility, which I did talk about the snow removal. What we have done though is we've actually shifted it over just a little bit so that we have a proper turning radius. From there, one of the feedback from the accessibility committee was that we could actually
come closer, Stuart.
Yeah, some of the feedback from the from the accessibility committee was that we should move the parking about 14 feet to the east and allow the handicapped vehicles an ability to back out and turn and then go out. And that's what is being proposed at this point in time.
Well, when I was at that meeting, like what that some people had at this, in front of the station, there was also talk about putting accessibility to parking spots on Caroline Street, right there at the entrance from, the walkway from Caroline in.
That's right.
Is that still in consideration?
What was decided is that would be a separate item, that the station on the green needs its own handicap parking. And so what's township and municipal lands will be decided by the municipality separate. particular situation.
Okay, yeah, this is, as I said, the accessibility parking is still, I do see a bit of a problem still. But as long as the area can be cleaned properly.
Well, we will
In
have
the
our
winter
maintenance
time.
person, we'll have our maintenance person for sure provide access on the site, proper access when there's snow removal required. Even if the municipality hasn't done it, they'll be out there a little earlier doing it. And the municipality will still continue to do some of the major walkways perhaps, but we will definitely be providing access to Station on the Green, because that's an important part of what this whole park's about. I mean, at the end of the day, this whole thing is about trying to create a stronger, better, improved Station on the Green for all of us, for the whole community. Yeah, no, that's for sure something that's very easily solved.
Now, does anybody who was, are there other questions from any of the board members, please?
No.
It's Barry. Can you just remind me, what's the size of the stage going to be?
About 400 square feet, Barry. It looks a little bigger than that because on the front of it there are some steps and seating, but it's actually not 400 square feet. And there's and if you'll see in your councilor's package that you'll receive this week, you'll see what we've done is we've taken a train stop metaphor and used the train stop metaphor to design the stage. So it's going to look a little bit like a train stop on the railway to the Station on the Green. It'll be quite a lovely piece of architecture, and it'll be relatively simple because we don't want to take away from the beauty of the green. But and then it'll be 400 square feet is what it is, which is what was recommended by virtually everybody that we talked to.
Anything else, people?
Stuart, you mentioned earlier about the construction right now. Of course, timing is everything. Construction never goes quite as planned. When this park is completed, at some point in the future, next spring perhaps, when everything gets put together and you're able to complete it, could you kind of give us an idea going forward, what happens then? What do you see happening with the park once it's up and running? What will that look like? And going forward, what will that look like?
Ines, do you want to talk about that perhaps? I could talk about it, but I think you're probably better at it.
I think once construction is completed, or I should say just before it's completed, the foundation plans to hire a program person who's going to work together with the BIA, with Purple Hills, with Station on the Green, and do a plan for the coming year in terms of activities so they don't conflict with each other. Part of this design is related to enhancing casual use, people walking through the park, having a bite to eat. And then other parts might be more kind of scheduling events such as maybe an exhibit of pumpkins around that Central Village Green the day after Halloween, do a little Halloween march, or it might be puppet shows at the end of the market day, or Sunday cello player or country music on Tuesday night. So the idea is to bring in all kinds of cultural events that are not just about tourism, but they're about the flavor of the village itself. So it's really going back to the idea of an attractor and making it 4 seasons. And that will be the job of the programmer. And I think, you know, because we're so uncertain about when is this going to be finished, is it October or is it spring in terms of an opening, we can't hire a programmer or indeed even look for one until we know like what the start date is. But that's the idea, is to work together with BIA, Purple Hills. There's some events related to the Legion's march from the cenotaph, the Christmas carols, starting with the lighting of a Christmas tree and then coming into the main square and so forth. So there's a lot of details that we can see part-time person being, totally committed to just programming the park.
I see an opportunity going forward in the future that this person or the foundation would be coordinating things beyond just the park, but for the whole village. Can you see an opportunity for that?
That's not our goal. Our intention is really to, this is our first project. Hopefully we will have other projects, but we very much only want to do what the township is interested in doing from both a physical improvement perspective, but also from a heritage and a cultural perspective. We will be supporting the community hopefully more broadly over time, but it's never to take over all of these things. Is not our goal. Our goal is not to do so. It's just simply to, our real goal for this particular park is to really manage it really professionally and really well, and work really closely with the community to really make this truly a success. There is not another site like this in the triangle up here that will be as much of an attractor as a park as this is. No other community has done this kind of thing, and I think that makes us unique as a community. And within Clearview, I think it's fabulous. I think it'll act as a Clearview as well. So all of this is very positive. Just to add on to what Ines said, we're also looking, one of the main things that we wanted to do here was to improve the commercial viability of the businesses on Mill Street. And Vision on the Green is that by having all the activities that they have. But if we can complement everything and pull that together and create something that's really significant, we will help our businesses on Mill Street, and God knows they need it. So that's really critical, and that's one of our goals. We haven't really talked about it too much, but that was one, and the very first conclusions of the small report were to support businesses on Mill Street, and we firmly believe in that, which is why when you try to visualize what it will look like, we may be closing the street just at that Mill Street block between Caroline and the park, and we could have a concert and take that whole area over instead of closing the street and trying to operate in the middle of the street with a band. So this is going to create a whole different meeting place for our community, hopefully. And did I answer your question? Probably and more.
Well, I just would hope that you keep that option open, though, because I think if you're involved with the BIA and other groups, including the station and organizing this, it is going to spill over into the larger village and could end up coordinating a lot of different things. And I think that would be plus for everybody.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I think Patty Cleary has maybe joined us on a phone, if I'm correct.
Yes, I'm sorry for the delay.
And
Cutting hay.
so does anyone have any other questions for Inez or Stuart or anything about what we just finished discussing? And did you have anything else in addition that you wanted to add?
The only thing I would add is I've got 3 takeaways here that I've written down. One is the bicycles question that we're going to look into, and the security cameras, which I think are both very good points for the kids' bicycles and the security cameras. And the third item is the utility sub-metering and how that would work with the township. And I'll talk to Terry about that today. Terry.
Okay. And because as I said, when we're finished this section, we're going to stay around for a little bit more of a meeting. So I just don't know when. I don't know. Is there anything else that you would like to ask?
No, I just want to make sure I've got the right point. Are there any other points that I've missed here that I should take away?
Well, I guess, other than the snow cleaning that I brought up, if, to make, because the accessibility parking is changing drastically. I mean, you really have to be on that one, I think. And I will be interested in what you do with the memorial plaques and benches. I mean, I want to see, I would like to, you know, have you let us know what the plan is.
Okay.
Linda, that we will probably ask that you join us for another meeting, probably in a month's time. Shane Durnford has been working on signage for the entire site and upgrading the signs right above the Station on the Green doors. So we'd like you to take a look at those once he's completed the design and get a feel for if that's satisfactory for
Yeah,
you.
that's great. Thank you. Anything else please, from anybody on the board?
No.
So, and because I said, the board members are going to stay on for a little bit more of a meeting, but that would mean that, you know, we're finished at this point.
Okay, we'll leave. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and joining us this morning. Thank you.
Well, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Van, Finn, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and I think we're now at the board